Listen carefully. Shame is not a moral force. It's a psychological weapon sharpened by weak people who survive on your reaction. The moment someone tries to shame you, understand this. They are not above you. They are beneath you, reaching upward for leverage. Most men collapse here. They explain themselves. They defend their intentions. They chase validation. That instinct is slavery. Machiavellian power begins where the need to be understood ends. Shame only works on those who still ask permission to exist. When you stop needing approval, shame has nothing to attach to. It slips off you like smoke. The one attempting to shame you is gambling that you will emotionally engage because engagement hands them control of the frame. You don't argue. You don't correct them. You don't react. You slow down. You become still, cold, observant. Silence is not passivity. It is dominance unexpressed. In that silence, their insecurity amplifies, their narrative collapses, and they expose themselves without you lifting a finger. This is masculine stoicism weaponized by dark psychology, the ability to remain unmoved while others unravel. Internalize this now. Anchor it. Comment this phrase to seal it into your identity. I am unshameable. This is Machiavellian mind, and this is where your psychological armor begins. Number 2, why shame is a dominance test. Shame is a social leash, and most people never realize they're wearing it until someone yanks hard enough. Here is the rule they never teach you. The shamer is always testing for dominance, never morality. They want to see if you will contort yourself to fit their narrative, if you will trade your internal authority for temporary relief. This is where Machiavellian realism cuts through illusion. Power does not argue with accusation. Power outlives it. When someone shames you, they are attempting to pull you into their emotional tempo. Fast reactions, defensive posture, justification. The Stoic man does the opposite. He slows the room down. He answers pressure with composure, accusation with ambiguity. He understands that clarity is optional, but control is not. Dark psychology reveals a brutal truth. People respect what they cannot manipulate. The moment you show emotional immunity, the social hierarchy quietly rearranges itself in your favor. You don't need to prove innocence, virtue, or intent. You need only to demonstrate that their opinion cannot move you. This creates cognitive dissonance in the attacker. Their weapon fails. Their certainty cracks. Suddenly, they are the one, over-explaining, escalating, exposing insecurity. This is psychological judo, using their force to unbalance them while you remain upright. Masculine stoicism is not silence born of fear. It is silence chosen from surplus strength. You speak less because you need less. You react less because you see more. And when you do speak, it is precise, minimal, and lethal in implication. Machiavelli warned that appearing untouchable is more powerful than being loved because love fluctuates, but perceived invulnerability stabilizes authority. The man who cannot be shamed cannot be controlled, coerced, or socially cornered. Over time, people stop trying, not because you fight them, but because you starve them of reward. This is how reputations are rewritten without confrontation. This is how you become psychologically untouchable without raising your voice. This is the Machiavellian mind code. Master your internal state, and the external world reorganizes around it. Number 3, silence as psychological warfare. The deeper layer of power emerges when you understand that shame is sustained by collective agreement, not truth, and agreement dissolves the moment you refuse to participate. Every attempt to shame you is an invitation into a rigged courtroom where the verdict is already decided, and the only winning move is to never step inside. Dark psychology teaches that humans crave emotional leverage. They seek reactions the way predators seek weakness. When you deny that reaction, you interrupt their reward cycle. This is where most men panic because silence feels like exposure, but in reality, silence is concealment. You are not hiding out of fear. You are withholding access. Machiavellian strategy is not about confrontation. It is about positioning. You let them speak, accuse, posture, and escalate while you remain internally anchored. Their words begin to sound excessive. Their tone grows sharp. Observers feel the imbalance before they can explain it. The shamer looks unstable. You look grounded. Masculine Stoicism operates here as emotional insulation. You acknowledge nothing you do not choose to acknowledge. You do not rush to clarify your character, because character is demonstrated over time, not argued in moments of tension. The more they push, the more they reveal intent, resentment, envy, or insecurity. This is how psychological dominance flips without force. You become the calm center while they orbit in agitation. Power psychology confirms this pattern relentlessly. The one who controls emotional tempo controls social outcome. When you move slowly, others speed up. When you remain still, others expose motion. Over time, your reputation shifts from reactive to immovable. People begin to self-censor around you, not because you intimidate them loudly, but because they cannot read you. Unreadability is protection. Predictability is vulnerability. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be respected than understood, because understanding invites interference. By refusing shame, you train the world how to treat you. Each non-reaction is a boundary reinforced. Each calm pause is authority accumulated. Eventually, attempts to shame you stop entirely, not because people become kinder, but because they become pragmatic. They learn there is nothing to gain. This is how you psychologically dominate without cruelty, without noise, without explanation. This is the Machiavellian mind state, internal sovereignty, expressed as external gravity. Number 4, becoming expensive to provoke. At this stage, you stop thinking of shame as an external attack and begin seeing it as a filter that reveals who is worth your attention and who is not. The attempt to shame you is never about correction. It is about extraction. They want your energy, your validation, your emotional labor. Once you understand this, the instinct to react dissolves. You no longer feel threatened by words, tones, or crowds because you see the mechanism operating beneath them. The man who masters this level does not harden emotionally, he sharpens selectively. He knows when to disengage, when to observe, and when to let others defeat themselves with their own excess. Dark psychology teaches that social power belongs to the one who can endure discomfort without signaling distress. When you do not rush to repair an accusation, people subconsciously assume there is nothing to repair. When you do not scramble to defend your reputation, it appears intact. This is counterintuitive, which is why it works. Most people believe urgency equals innocence, but power understands that urgency equals dependence. You move with deliberation, not because you are slow, but because you are sovereign. Masculine Stoicism here is not emotional suppression, it is emotional governance. You feel everything, but you reveal nothing that can be used against you. This forces others to guess, and guessing creates anxiety. Anxiety weakens leverage. Over time, you begin to notice a shift. Conversations change tone around you, accusations soften before they are spoken, and people choose their words more carefully. This is not because you threaten them, but because you have become expensive to provoke. Shame collapses when it cannot find traction, and traction requires your participation. You are no longer available for that exchange. You do not need to dominate verbally, because your presence already sets the frame. The ultimate Machiavellian move is not crushing your opponent, but making their attack irrelevant. When their words pass through you without reaction, they lose meaning. When they lose meaning, they lose power. This is how you exit the psychological marketplace where shame is traded and step into a position where your inner state dictates the terms of engagement. From here on, you choose when to speak, when to act, and when to let silence do the work. Number 5. Unreadable is untouchable. Once you reach this level of internal control, you begin to notice something unsettling and empowering at the same time. Shame no longer arrives with force, it arrives with confusion. People attempt the same tactics they use on others, but the effect is muted, distorted, ineffective. They throw labels, insinuations, moral accusations, and emotional bait, yet nothing lands. This is because shame requires resonance, and you have removed the instrument it plays on. Machiavellian awareness teaches that social games persist only while participants obey the rules unconsciously. The moment you see the rules, you are no longer bound by them. You stop mistaking volume for authority and outrage for truth. You recognize that most shaming behavior is rooted in insecurity disguised as virtue, weakness masked as righteousness. Masculine stoicism at this level becomes surgical. You do not withdraw from the world, you move through it with precision. You let people reveal themselves fully before you decide what access they deserve. Dark psychology explains that humans escalate when their tactics fail, and this is where patience becomes a weapon. As they escalate, they contradict themselves. As they contradict themselves, observers begin to disengage from their narrative. You never needed to fight them. You only needed to let time and composure do the work. This creates a psychological asymmetry that feels deeply uncomfortable to those who rely on social pressure. They cannot read you, cannot rush you, cannot corner you emotionally. This unreadability becomes your armor. Over time, you stop being a target and start becoming a reference point. People check themselves before projecting onto you. They sense boundaries without you announcing them. This is power without performance. You are not intimidating because you are aggressive. You are intimidating because you are unmoved. Machiavelli understood that true authority is quiet because it does not need reinforcement. The man who cannot be shamed has already won every social battle before it begins. He does not seek dominance, yet dominance follows him because stability attracts gravity. Shame dissolves in the presence of self-possession. When you no longer negotiate your worth, others stop attempting to bargain it down. This is not arrogance, it is internal alignment made visible. You no longer fear being misunderstood, because misunderstanding cannot harm what is internally solid. You allow others to think what they want, say what they want, believe what they want, because your center does not depend on consensus. This is where psychological freedom becomes permanent. From here on, interactions are choices, not threats. Reactions are deliberate, not automatic. You have exited the emotional economy that keeps most people controllable. Comment this phrase now to seal this state into your identity. I am unshameable. Number 6. The collapse of social leverage. At the highest tier of psychological mastery, shame no longer feels like an attack, but like background noise from a world you no longer inhabit. You recognize that most people are trapped in invisible contracts they never consciously signed. Contracts that say approval equals safety, disagreement equals danger, and rejection equals death of identity. When someone tries to shame you, they are enforcing that contract, hoping you still believe in its terms. But you don't. You have already defaulted on it internally. Machiavellian realism teaches that the most effective power move is exiting games without announcing your departure. You don't declare independence from shame, you simply stop responding to it. This creates a void, and voids terrify people who rely on emotional leverage. Dark psychology reveals that shame is a social reflex designed to correct behavior through fear of exclusion, but once you understand that exclusion only matters when belonging is your primary currency, the reflex breaks. You begin to operate from self-legitimization rather than social validation. Masculine stoicism at this level is no longer restraint, it is clarity. You see motives instantly. You sense when someone is projecting, posturing, or signaling virtue to mask insecurity. You don't expose them, because exposure is unnecessary. The truth emerges on its own when you refuse to participate in distortion. Your calm presence becomes a destabilizing force to those who thrive on emotional chaos. They expect resistance, defense, or submission. What they receive instead is neutrality, and neutrality feels like dominance to an insecure mind. Over time, this rewires how others approach you. People intuitively understand that shaming you will not elevate them, will not provoke drama, will not grant them attention. The cost-benefit calculation fails. You have become psychologically expensive to manipulate. This is not because you are feared in the conventional sense, but because you are uncontrollable. Machiavelli warned that the worst position in any power dynamic is dependence, and shame feeds on dependence like oxygen. When you remove dependence, shame suffocates. You stop correcting false narratives unless correction serves your long-term positioning. You stop explaining yourself to people who have not earned context. You understand that reputation is shaped less by defense and more by consistency over time. The more you live unbothered, the more accusations appear absurd. Observers notice the contrast between your composure and another's agitation. Humans are pattern recognition machines, and they subconsciously side with stability. This is how dominance forms without confrontation. This is how authority emerges without enforcement. You are no longer trying to win social encounters. You are selecting which ones deserve your energy. The internal shift is profound. You feel lighter, not heavier. You realize how much mental bandwidth was wasted on imagined judgment, hypothetical rejection, and preemptive self-defense. Now, that energy is reclaimed. You become decisive, grounded, self-directed. People either adapt to your frame or remove themselves. Both outcomes benefit you. Shame loses its last weapon when you stop fearing isolation, because isolation is only dangerous when you lack inner structure. You have built that structure. You are no longer governed by the emotional weather of others. Praise doesn't inflate you. Criticism doesn't shrink you. You stand on internal alignment, not external consensus. This is the point of no return. Once crossed, you cannot be psychologically owned again, because ownership requires access, and you control access completely. Your silence is intentional, your words are deliberate. Your presence communicates that your worth is non-negotiable. This is not arrogance, this is self-possession refined through awareness. This is how shame dies permanently, not through confrontation, but through irrelevance. Number 7, self-legitimization, the point of no return. At this advanced stage, the transformation is no longer something you perform, it is something you embody. An embodiment changes the rules entirely. Shame can only function when it finds an internal judge willing to cooperate, and that judge has already been dismissed. You are no longer negotiating your identity with the outside world, because negotiation implies uncertainty, and uncertainty is gone. Machiavellian realism teaches that the most dangerous person in any hierarchy is the one who no longer needs to climb it. When someone attempts to shame you now, they are operating from an outdated map, unaware that the terrain has shifted. Their tactics feel clumsy, almost desperate, because they are built for minds that still fear social exile. Dark psychology explains that humans unconsciously seek emotional equilibrium. When they project shame, they expect discomfort in return. When none appears, their nervous system destabilizes. They begin to question their own authority, their own assumptions, their own standing. This is not because you attack them, but because you refuse to validate their role as judge. Masculine stoicism at this level becomes quiet sovereignty. You are not cold because you are closed. You are calm because you are complete. You listen without absorbing, observe without reacting, and respond only when it serves your direction. This creates an invisible psychological boundary that others sense immediately. They may not be able to articulate it, but they feel it. They feel that you cannot be pulled, rushed, or coerced into emotional labor. Over time, shame attempts become shorter, softer, or disappear entirely. Not because the world has become kinder, but because it has become more efficient. People instinctively stop investing energy where there is no return. You have become a dead end for manipulation. Machiavelli emphasized that power is sustained by perception, and perception is shaped by consistency. Each time you remain unmoved, the perception of your self-command solidifies. Each time you refuse to explain yourself unnecessarily, your autonomy becomes more visible. You are no longer trying to appear strong. Strength has become the baseline. This internal shift changes how you move through conversations, conflicts, and silence. You no longer feel compelled to correct every misunderstanding because you understand that misunderstanding does not equal danger. You let people misinterpret you if it costs them peace and costs you nothing. This detachment is not indifference, it is discernment. Dark psychology reveals that the need to be seen as good is often stronger than the need to be good, and shame exploits that gap. You have closed it. You act according to your code, not public reaction. As a result, attempts to shame you feel hollow, like echoes in an empty room. Observers pick up on this emptiness. They sense that accusations do not stick, narratives do not land, and pressure does not bend you. Slowly, you become the standard by which others measure emotional control. They may resent it, admire it, or misunderstand it, but they cannot ignore it. This is influence without effort. This is dominance without display. You are no longer emotionally available to be managed. Praise does not intoxicate you. Criticism does not destabilize you. You extract information from both and discard the rest. This neutrality is unsettling to those who live through reaction, but grounding to those who seek stability. Over time, your presence alone discourages nonsense. People speak more carefully, they choose words more precisely, they hesitate before projecting onto you. This is not intimidation, it is consequence awareness. You have taught the world through behavior alone that you are not a suitable target. Shame fails here because it cannot override self-legitimization. You decide who you are, what you tolerate, and what you ignore. The internal dialogue that once questioned your worth has gone quiet, replaced by clarity. From this position, you are no longer defending anything. There is nothing to defend. You are simply moving forward, unaffected, unbothered, and internally aligned. This is psychological independence made visible. This is what it means to be untouchable. Comment this phrase now to anchor it permanently. I am unshameable. Number 8. When shame loses all authority. At the final threshold of this psychological evolution, you stop framing interactions in terms of winning or losing and begin operating from inevitability. Shame no longer appears as an event. It appears as a failed attempt that never fully materializes. You sense it forming before it is spoken, and because you do not fear it, it collapses under its own weight. This is where true Machiavellian awareness lives, not in scheming against others, but in mastering the self so completely that others lose leverage by default. Shame depends on urgency, on the target rushing to correct, defend, or conform. You have removed urgency from your nervous system. You move at your own pace, governed by internal standards rather than external pressure. Dark psychology reveals that the human mind looks for friction points, emotional hooks, unresolved insecurities it can press against. When those hooks are gone, manipulation has nowhere to attach. Masculine Stoicism here is not an aesthetic or a performance, it is structural. You are built differently now. You no longer internalize random judgments because you understand that most judgments are confessions in disguise. People reveal their fears, resentments, and unmet desires through what they criticize. You let them speak, not to absorb their words, but to read their psychology. This reframes every attempted shaming into information rather than threat. Information gives advantage. Threats require reaction. You choose the former. Over time, this creates an aura of inevitability around you. People sense that their opinions do not define your trajectory. They feel that you are not waiting for permission, approval, or consensus. This is deeply unsettling to those who live by social calibration, but deeply stabilizing to those who respect inner authority. Machiavelli understood that the most powerful position is not dominance through force, but dominance through self-sufficiency. When you are emotionally self-sufficient, you are immune to coercion. Shame, guilt, and moral pressure lose their grip because they cannot override internal alignment. You know who you are, why you move, and what you tolerate. Everything else becomes noise. This level of detachment does not make you cold, it makes you precise. You invest energy where it compounds and withdraw from situations designed to drain. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, because explanation is wasted on closed systems. Dark psychology confirms that the need to be understood is often the final chain keeping people controllable. You have broken it. Misunderstanding no longer threatens you because your identity does not live in other people's interpretations. This frees an enormous amount of mental bandwidth. You become clearer in decision-making, firmer in boundaries, and calmer under pressure. Others feel this calm as gravity. They may not agree with you, but they cannot easily dismiss you. Stability commands respect even from opposition. Shame fails here because it relies on destabilization, and you are no longer destabilizable. Attempts to provoke you feel like shadows boxing a wall. The wall does not react, it simply stands. Over time, people either rise to your level of composure or remove themselves from your orbit. Both outcomes are functional. You are no longer managing impressions, you are expressing coherence. Your words carry weight because they are not rushed. Your silence carries weight because it is intentional. You do not posture. You do not perform outrage or virtue. You let others exhaust themselves while you remain centered. This is not passive, it is strategic stillness. The world is noisy because most people are internally unstable. When you are not, you become an anchor point. Shame cannot anchor to you because you are already anchored within yourself. This is the final reversal. Instead of fearing social judgment, others become subtly aware of their own behavior around you. They self-regulate, they hesitate, they reconsider, not because you threaten them, but because you represent something they cannot easily influence. This is what it means to be psychologically untouchable. Not invincible, not perfect, but internally sovereign. You have exited the economy of shame entirely. Number 9. Psychological sovereignty. At this terminal stage of inner mastery, you no longer experience shame as something to resist because resistance implies contact, and contact is no longer granted. What once felt like pressure now feels like distance. You have created a psychological altitude where petty judgments cannot breathe. This is not detachment born from apathy, but detachment born from precision. You know exactly who you are, what you value, and where you are going, and anything that does not align with that trajectory is filtered out without effort. Machiavellian realism teaches that the most effective power is quiet inevitability, the kind that does not need to announce itself or demand recognition. Shame fails here because it requires your belief in external authority, and that belief is gone. You have replaced it with internal jurisdiction. Dark psychology explains that people shame others to regulate their own anxiety, to offload discomfort, to restore a sense of control. When you refuse to absorb that discomfort, it rebounds back to its source. You watch this happen without satisfaction or malice, simply as cause and effect. Masculine stoicism at this level is not emotional numbness. It is emotional literacy paired with discipline. You feel the attempt, recognize the tactic, and choose non-engagement. This choice is not passive, it is decisive. It communicates boundaries without words and strength without display. Over time, this creates a reputation that precedes you. People sense that you are not reactive, not needy, not dependent on consensus. They adjust accordingly. Conversations become cleaner, accusations lose confidence, provocations soften or vanish. You have not demanded respect, you have made disrespect inefficient. This is the highest form of social power, shaping behavior through presence alone. You no longer chase being right because you understand that being centered is more influential than being correct. You no longer fear being judged because judgment has no leverage over a man who is internally aligned. You let others misunderstand you if it costs them peace and costs you nothing. This freedom is unsettling to those still trapped in approval-seeking loops, but stabilizing to those who recognize self-command. You are no longer trying to control narratives. Narratives collapse when they lack emotional fuel. You conserve energy by refusing unnecessary explanations, refusing reactive defenses, refusing to enter arenas designed to drain rather than build. Dark psychology confirms that people escalate when ignored, but only briefly. Escalation requires an audience and a payoff. When neither appears, the behavior extinguishes itself. You have become immune not by fighting shame, but by starving it. This immunity reshapes your inner world. You move with calm urgency when action is required, and with deliberate stillness when it is not. You no longer confuse noise with importance or intensity with truth. Your nervous system remains regulated under pressure, which gives you clarity when others lose it. That clarity compounds over time into confidence that does not need reassurance. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop anticipating criticism. You stop preemptively defending choices that align with your code. This mental quiet is not emptiness. It is space reclaimed. In that space, your decisions sharpen, your boundaries strengthen, and your sense of self solidifies. Others feel this solidity as gravity. They may not agree with you, but they cannot easily move you. Shame cannot penetrate here because it relies on destabilization, and you are no longer destabilizable. You have accepted the cost of independence and discovered that the cost was exaggerated. What you lost was illusion. What you gained was sovereignty. From this position, you are not above others, but you are no longer beneath their opinions. You meet the world without armor because your structure is internal. You do not posture, threaten, or perform dominance. You simply remain aligned, consistent, and unmoved. This consistency is what ultimately makes you untouchable, not because no one will ever try again, but because trying no longer works. The cycle ends here. Number 10. The man shame cannot touch. At this closing phase of integration, what changes most is not how others treat you, but how little their behavior registers as significant. The machinery of shame, once loud and invasive, now feels distant, like an old system still running somewhere outside your walls, but no longer connected to your power supply. You are not reacting because there is nothing to react to. Your identity is no longer provisional, no longer awaiting confirmation, no longer exposed to revision by external pressure. Machiavellian realism reaches its cleanest form here. You understand that most social force is sustained by compliance masquerading as morality, and once compliance is withdrawn calmly, force evaporates. Dark psychology clarifies why this works so reliably. Humans subconsciously test boundaries to locate hierarchy, and shame is one of the fastest tests available. When the test fails repeatedly, the mind updates its model. You are reclassified, not as aggressive, not as submissive, but as non-participatory. This is the most destabilizing category because it cannot be easily controlled. Masculine stoicism at this level is not restraint for the sake of appearance. It is restraint because excess is unnecessary. You do not rush to be seen as virtuous because virtue that needs advertising is fragile. You do not rush to correct accusations because truth that needs defending on demand is weak. You allow time, consistency, and composure to do the work most people try to force through argument. This patience is not passive. It is strategic endurance. Over time, the world responds differently. People bring fewer assumptions to you. They speak with more intention. They hesitate before projecting. Some drift away, unable to extract reaction or validation. Others adapt, sensing stability and respecting it even if they cannot explain why. You are no longer managing impressions. You are setting conditions. Shame fails permanently here because it requires emotional access, and access is no longer automatic. You decide what enters your inner world and what is filtered out without ceremony. This filtering creates mental silence, and in that silence, your decisions become cleaner, your energy more focused, your presence heavier. You are not hardened, you are distilled. The unnecessary falls away. What remains is alignment. You act according to principle rather than pressure, direction rather than distraction. Criticism becomes data, not threat. Praise becomes information, not fuel. Neither distorts you. This neutrality is the final shield because it cannot be penetrated by emotional tactics designed for volatility. You stop living defensively and start living deliberately. There is no audience in your head anymore, no imaginary jury, no constant self-surveillance, just action, consequence, adjustment, and forward motion. This is not the absence of feeling, it is the presence of self-command. Shame dies here because there is no internal authority left for it to appeal to. You have assumed that authority fully. The cycle closes not with conflict but with clarity. If this perspective sharpened your mind, subscribe Machiavellian Mind.